Hello there everyone and welcome back. I'm Nick Yakabuchi and our next review is the action comedy Night and Day. This film opened around the country on Wednesday, June 23rd, 2010, and it stars Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz, Peter Sarsgaard, and I have to mention Erie, Pennsylvania's own Marc Blucas. There really is something very cool about a hometown guy like Marc Blucas scoring a big part in a big Hollywood film with some of Hollywood's most impressive talents. One of those talents being director James Mangold, director of Walk the Line, Identity, Kate and Leopold, and Copland. I must also say that even though this looked like a carbon copy of the horrifically terrible Killers with Katherine Heigl, I went in with semi-high expectations because of the faith that I have in director James Mangold. This film opens telling us the story of Cameron Diaz, June Havens. June is a lover of classic cars and restores them professionally. She is on her way back home for the wedding of her younger sister when she accidentally bumps into Tom Cruise's Roy Miller at the airport. There is a short exchange between them and they part only to accidentally bump into each other once again while waiting to board the plane. They share the same flight with limited passengers, and when she excuses herself to use the restroom, we see the true sides of Roy and the others aboard. I'm not sure, but I think the best way to describe Roy Miller is that he's a super duper man of action special forces secret agent, or something to that effect. I say that because he takes on about a dozen individuals, he finishes them off one by one, and still has enough left to land the jet in a cornfield. Now this only begins the adventure of Roy and June that takes us around the world in a calamity of bullets, car chases, explosions, and a surprising number of knockout drops put into people's drinks. After landing the plane, Roy drugs June, and when she awakens, she is in her parents' home and she thinks that it was all a dream until she sees all the post-it notes that Roy left for her all around the house. She then tries confiding her situation into friends, but is soon interrupted by Roy's public kidnapping of her, and June has now become an unwilling participant of this plan of Roy's, and she must learn, as this plays on, to shed her naive persona, or she will end up in a much worse situation than she's in now. It seems that the FBI is tracking our hero because, what else? He's gone rogue. Don't they always go rogue? I think so. They believe that he is responsible for stealing and trying to sell the Zephyr. The Zephyr is about the same size as a AA battery and is a battery source itself. We learn that it can power a small city or a big submarine for quite a duration of time. That would be forever. It is an endless source of power, sought after by governments, both foreign and domestic, and also some very bad men as well. Now, Roy obviously claims that he is framed and needs to expose the true identity of the actual culprit, and moreover, he has to get the Zephyr and its inventor to safety, and all that time he has to also return June stateside in time for the marriage of her sister. Well, people, this is a very enjoyable movie, and the biggest reason for that is the undying charm and smile of Tom Cruise. There are specific times when the movie calls for him to break his character into a more stern presence, but for 90% of this film, he is just plain appealing, funny, and Roy Miller is even charming when shooting you in the leg. And Cameron Diaz June is also a treat most of the way. She repeatedly gets drugged throughout this film, and every time she wakes up, she's either in a different country, a different continent, and the most outrageous things are occurring during the flashes of reality that we see while she is under the influence. It was very, very funny each time that it was used. Now, one issue that I do have with this project is the action sequences. They are very far-fetched. I would say way, way too far-fetched. And they take the idea of suspension of disbelief to new heights. Our leads have more lives than any cats, and even James Bond gets his clothes dirty during his movies. You know, it didn't have to be hardcore, but it could have been a bit more believable. The funny thing is, the non-action scenes worked throughout this project, and the scenes with Roy and June being tender flowed just as smooth as the ones that were comical. You know, I really didn't care for their first collaboration in Cameron Crowe's Vanilla Sky, but Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz made a very cute and likable couple in Night and Day, and after seeing this, I'd like to see them maybe get together for a straight romantic comedy. As I mentioned earlier, this film is very much parallels the recent dud Killers, but this is a much better movie. You know, not to my surprise, Tom Cruise is still a very credible action star, and I would say that this was far more entertaining than Mr. and Mrs. Smith from just a few years ago. I also enjoyed that as the film played out, Cameron Diaz slowly matured into sort of a secret agent herself. Just think of Cary Grant by the end of North by Northwest. This film is paced perfectly and never was I bored while watching it. Like the movie The A-Team from just a few weeks ago, this is not going to win any awards, but I don't think that was ever the intention. At 1 hour and 50 minutes, Night and Day was just pure fun and good entertainment, and even though I did like it, it could have been just a little bit better. 3 stars out of 4, and remember people, I'm not always right, only when it comes to the movies. And thank you for your attention.